nuclear coal directly behind. And then to my right behind, we have the new Principal Finance Officer, Mr. Lucian Robinson. And then on the back, we have the Facilities and Office Manager, Mr. Renford Watson, along with the Marshal to the Houses, Mr. Wayne Glade, who is now providing direct supervisory report for the Facilities and Office Manager. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson, my namesake, I'm not a stickler for the dress code like the member from Southwest St. Catherine, but generally when you come in here, ensure that you have a tie, okay? All right. What we normally do, members, I'll invite the Auditor General to provide a summary of her findings, and then the clerk will have an opportunity to respond, and then we can go into questions after. Madam Auditor General.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, we're proceeding according to the agenda item 5, so we're starting with a special report.
Yes, correct.
And when do you, we're going to move then immediately to the, if we have time, I suppose, to the annual report?
Well, what we intend to do today is not a detailed discussion of the annual report, but to identify the areas from the annual report that we intend to probe further. Okay. So we do intend to have a detailed discussion. So for example, members could indicate, for example, a particular ministry or agency or department that you believe requires probing, and then we would invite them to the next sitting of the PAC.
Okay, just wanted
sure.
Administratively to get that. Okay.
Yeah. Madam Auditor General.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The special audit of the Houses of Parliament was undertaken in response to matters brought to my attention by a whistleblower regarding the administration and management of certain operational activities. In accordance with our standard operation procedures, a preliminary review of the reported allegations was undertaken. This review determined that sufficient grounds existed to commission a special audit, of which the primary objective was to assess whether the procurement and contract management practices, government fleet vehicle management, and the use of an official credit card was conducted in keeping with applicable laws, regulations, and guidelines. The audit was designed to evaluate compliance and to identify any deviations from established standards in these areas. The report highlights breaches of established rules and controls, weaknesses in relation to procurement planning and execution, fleet management, and credit card administration. However, I wish to point out, Mr. Chairman, that one allegation regarding the use of the government-issued credit card for personal purpose was not established by us. We saw no evidence to support that allegation. At the same time, the report that you should have with you reflects management's responses and action taken by management before the completion of our report. Since then, I have received, in fact, yesterday, I received a response from the Houses of Parliament, which was sent Friday evening. The prompt, which I would have shared with the Secretary to the committee, is presented in a different format because the prompt covers the executive summary, the key findings only. The response provided by the clerk is more detailed and went through the full report. I have not had an opportunity to validate anything contained in this prompt that is in addition to the information that was already supplied. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Members, just so I can bring everybody up to speed, once a ministry, agency, or department is subject to an audit, we provide that entity with generally 4 weeks to formally respond to the audit findings. This is in addition to the opportunity that they would have during the course of the audit to provide information to the Auditor General. But once it is tabled and it's final, the entity has 4 weeks to respond, which is why if you look at the status report, you will see the status of other entities that have been subject to audits and the time frame given to them to respond. Once that report comes in, the Auditor General generally does a validation of those responses. Given the late time frame between the submission of the report, what the Auditor General has indicated is that she didn't have the time to validate the response. So I just want to be clear. Member Seawright, I see your mic. I don't know if you have it on deliberately or not. Okay. All right. Madam Clerk, I'll invite you to provide your response to the findings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today I appear before the committee in my capacity as accounting officer for the House.
I think you have to speak a little closer. Pull the mic a little closer to you.
Are you hearing me better?
Yes, that's
Thank
better.
you. So, sorry. All right, let me, okay, it's easier for me to just hold. So, good morning again, everyone. Today I appear before the committee in my capacity as the accounting officer for the Houses of Parliament, and I wish to affirm my respect for the committee's oversight role and my commitment to accountability and the proper stewardship of public resources. The matters before the committee today arose from a special audit conducted by the Auditor General. My office has reviewed the findings, accepted those that are founded, and have implemented corrective measures where weaknesses were identified. I wish to state clearly at the outset that, based on the findings, there was no actual financial loss to the government arising from the deficiencies identified, noting that certain matters remain under statutory review in accordance with the Financial Administration and Audit Act. The auditors did not find any private or personal use of the government-funded credit card, and all funds identified were fully accounted for. In relation to fleet vehicle management, I did not authorize any personal use of government vehicles, nor did I authorize or condone the falsification of entries into logbooks. Where control weaknesses came to light, those arrangements were stopped immediately and stronger oversight mechanisms were put in place. As part of strengthening governance and ensuring compliance with the FAA Act, the Houses of Parliament approached the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service and formally requested the implementation of an internal audit committee. This represents the first time such a committee was being established in the history of the Parliament and is a significant step in institutionalizing oversight and accountability. Several of the issues raised in the report reflected historical control gaps and periods of administrative transition. Once these matters were brought to my attention, directives were issued, control strengthened, and governance arrangements formalized to prevent recurrence. I'm here today to assist the committee fully to clarify the factual and governance context and to answer questions on the systems that are now in place to protect the public interest and the integrity of the Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll start off by looking at key finding number 1. And for members, I'm reading from the prompt, but you can ask questions either from the prompt or from the full report. The issue of the unauthorized use of the motor vehicle. On the 3rd page, and I just bring your attention to a bullet point. HOP's response dated September 2025 cited August 15, 2025 memo claiming Clark's permission, even though no evidence not provided. Can you elaborate on that? Because the Auditor General is saying there was a response from, so I'm just for everybody so you can follow. I'm reading from this prompt and I'm on, this would be 1, 2, I'm on this page. It's not numbered, but I think it's page 3. Key finding number 2, bullet point number 3. And I just want to ensure just clarity on, you have this? Or you don't have this? Could we provide a copy to the clerk? And this is in relation to overnight retention and permission for the use of the vehicle. So the bullet point number 3 states the response dated September 2025, cited August 15, memo claiming clerk's permission, although evidence not provided. I'm just seeking clarity on that.
Regarding the overnight retention, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so by way of...
Just, again, put the mic a little closer to you.
Okay, so by way of background information, just to state that the officer in question was completing part-time studies at the University of the West Indies. And he, based on his time schedule at the time, he would often return to the parliament.
You're too nervous, man. You can't thief, but you can't dodge. You can't thief, but you can't dodge, my girl. You're nervous to have to take out all the mic.
Victim of crime.
You must have a DJ.
Left work late one evening. He was deprived of his personal effects in the downtown area. And it was known to us that he would often stay here until late in the night. And therefore permission was granted to him that he could have access to the vehicle to ensure his safety in those extenuating circumstances. But certainly no permission was ever granted for there to be any unauthorized usage of the vehicle for personal purposes, nor for incorrect entries to be entered in the logbooks.
Okay, so you would have, my understanding is he was held up and robbed, and as a result, permission would have been granted for him to, is it to keep the vehicle overnight?
In cases where he was working beyond sociable hours.
Okay, and in terms of the, I note, was there a disaggregation? It said, show the facilities and office manager use the vehicle 173 of 183 days, often parked off-site overnight. So, how far?
How give this a liar for tell? More than like to know who give this a liar for tell, but he was robbed. But he was robbed. When you see piece of liar said that drag queen are coming to parliament with, alright, we are going to press our button. We are going to press our button.
Or would the permission have gone in terms of granting him to keep the vehicle?
For the nights when he was here until very late, he would have permission to drive the vehicle home in those circumstances for purposes of safety, but certainly not to use the vehicle for any personal or private use. And I should also state that during the days, he would have also used the vehicle for official government purposes because sometimes we only have 2 drivers employed to the parliament. Currently we have 1. So on occasions he would also assist us in carrying out their activities.
Madam Auditor General, just seeking your guidance here. In a scenario where there are extenuating circumstances and permission was granted by the clerk for overnight use of the vehicle, what would satisfy the Auditor General? Because it was raised as a key finding and a breach. Was it the absence of written instructions, or what would satisfy you that permission was granted in a scenario like this?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, as the clerk shared her position, I was actually consulting with the AP for that area because...
What does AP mean?
I'm sorry, the audit principal with responsibility for the audit, because what she shared just now, that she granted permission for the vehicle to be used in some circumstances, that's actually new to me. So it is not something that I would have given contemplation to. My understanding up to this point is that there was no evidence that permission was granted for the use of the vehicle. I am now consulting with my AP on that. In any event, I believe the circular does say that permission has to be granted by the head of entity. This matter is here as an issue because there was no such evidence that any permission was granted, and my my understanding is that the clerk had also denied giving any such permission. I'm hearing something else now, Mr. Chairman, that I really do not want to provide any opinion on that until I have better particulars of really what existed.
Okay, so am I
Yes,
allowed
yes,
to respond?
Madam Clerk, yes.
The facilities and office manager would have made this disclosure to the auditors regarding the fact that he was held up and that permission was granted. And I also do believe that I would, in the exit interviews with the auditors, this would have been stated. What is clear is that there was no written permission, and what is also clear is that no permission was ever granted for there to be any breach of the FAA Act or for any incorrect entries to be made.
It don't matter if they want to hold him up, they want time down, they want to run over him, you know. The simple fuck of the matter, you never did write it down. So somebody are going to use the vehicle. Say no matter the circumstances on why I have to use the vehicle. The simple fact remain, Jag Queen. You never write it down.
And then I provide no evidence.
And you don't provide no evidence. So you come talk about you see that you debate pan he was robbed. Go tell Harris Chang. Yeah, come on, he was robbed. Go and tell, matter of fact, go tell Andrew, I'm the security minister now, because Harris Chang, afraid Trump good at look for him. Yeah, can't talk about he was robbed. Who the fuck care he was robbed? The simple fact of the matter, Jag Queen, you never write it down. Say, somebody get permission to use our vehicle. To use my vehicle.
There's no evidence to nothing.
There's no evidence. For no. Say this guy or whosoever are going to use my vehicle. You can't just jump and use my vehicle without write it down. You think a thief me a thief and pay tax? I work me have to work and pay tax, you know? You think say on salary? If you never know the amount of disrespect people go through to provide phone or salary. Phone no can name. You can't talk about he was robbed. Go report at the station. We don't care about that. The fuck of the matter. You never write it down so the bridge not going to use my vehicle. You come talk about it. A sympathy I look.
And then them come in a
call crime stop. Them for call crime stop.
Come in a parliament to talk different thing. You hear when the Auditor General
and this way you talk now is new to the Auditor General. And to how you're nervous. You can't make the mic stay at the host, you have to take it out. Like you're ready for go DJ or something. You come and see like in the pan repeat. He was robbed. I repeat to the pan. Go and file a report at the station. The fuck of the matter. You never write it down say you're gonna lend out my vehicle. And at that we are deal with. So I'm going to hear some more of this.
In the logbooks.
So just so I'm clear, so there would have been, after the incident, verbal permission would have been granted given the incident, but nothing was put in writing. So when the Auditor General would have done her audit, she would not have seen evidence of permission in writing.
There is no permission in writing, that is correct, but disclosures would have been made to the auditors by the facilities manager of what transpired
Okay.
when he was held up
Okay.
after leaving work very late one night.
All right. I say Member Bunting and Member Seabright. Member Bunting first.
I'm just trying to get some clarification. On that third bullet point, House of Parliament's response dated September 2025 cited an August 15, 2025 memo claiming clerk's permission.
This just don't make no sense, you know. Look here, the circumstances surround why I'm have to use the vehicle. Why it couldn't write down?
But it have to.
No,
It's a government.
watch you know. Look here, what happened? Why it couldn't write down?
Because I lie them a tell. I lie them a tell.
This don't make no sense. Jesus mercy.
Evidence not provided. Is that memo in the package? I must say, if you could point me to it.
If you look at HOP 5, I'm sorry, in the exhibits
What
that we would have sent.
Oh, this is in your response that just came.
Would it be
No,
in your
in our
management response?
response that would have been shared via email.
Oh, it's the appendix. Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
So in
Members,
in
I
this-
think this is the appendix that you can point us to
yeah.
that
It
particular.
wouldn't be a page. Exhibits, yeah.
Exhibit what?
HOP 5.
HOP 5?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the one dated or stamped August 15th, 2025?
It's stamped August 18th,
Oh,
but
18th,
it is
sorry,
dated
dated August 15th.
Correct.
So of the 173
Remember,
occasions,
just pull the mic closer so we can hear you.
of the 173 occasions that the employee took home the vehicle, how many of those occasions would have fit the approval that you gave?
I would not be in a position to give specific numbers, but that information could be provided in writing.
But qualitatively, would it have been the vast majority? Would it have been half? Would it have been a minority? I just want to get a sense. In other words, was your approval abused, or was it generally in line with what you had approved?
From my own observations, I would state that it appeared that there was no abuse of the permission
There was no abuse, you said?
based on my observation at the time, because additional information came to light at a later time, and that is when I would have provided instructions to the legal department. This was in June of last year, for them to also do a review based on information that was coming to my office about the manner in which the vehicle was being used, to determine if there was any abuse or non-compliance with the FAA Act. And upon receiving that legal opinion from our internal legal branch, the facilities and office manager was instructed that he should cease driving the motor vehicle, because in addition to instances where it was found that it was being used for personal reasons, it was also discovered that he was not ITA certified at the time. He did not have the proper certification that would have allowed him to be driving the government-owned vehicle.
Was he aware that he needed that before the ITA certification? Was he aware of that?
Certainly, because based on his job description, he had responsibility for fleet vehicle management. And one would want to imagine that any officer using due diligence would certainly be aware as to what is required of them. And there is, I saw something in one of the exhibits where it also indicated that the certification was granted at some particular moment in time. So if it is that it existed and it expired, certainly the officer would have an obligation to
Oh, so he
ensure
had it,
compliance.
it expired, and then
Yeah.
he renewed it, but there was
There
a
was
gap.
never, I'm
There was
not
a gap.
seeing evidence of renewal.
It was not renewed? No?
I don't have that
Okay.
evidence. To
And
provide,
that
Mr.
certification lasts for how long? I know a driver's
2
license lasts for a
years,
particular
2
period.
years.
It's 2 years. So every 2 years, the officer would need to renew. So during this period, how long would he have been driving the vehicle without the certification? Or approximately how long?
It
Roughly.
expired, I think July, I think it expired July 2024. And he continued to have access, or July 2023.
But what I would ask, Clark, just in terms of checks and balances, the owner shouldn't be solely on the individual. There should be a process where someone else would need to verify that he, in fact, has the certification. It shouldn't be, just from a process management perspective, it shouldn't be left to him alone to, and that goes for any individual. Someone should, I mean, I can say as parliamentarians, we have to provide our updated documents on a periodic basis to show that we still have our driver's license, etc. So whether it is HR or another function, someone should be checking to ensure that all officers who, whether they're granted government vehicles to drive, that they have the appropriate certification. You want to say something, Madam Auditor General? Member Seawright, I'll come back to you, but just release your mic so I can give the auditor. Go ahead, Madam Auditor General.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to emphasize that the clerk has introduced a new dimension. At page 18 of the report, paragraph 2.8.
Sorry, this is your,
Yes, the annual, the
this
special
one,
audit
this report,
correct.
page 18? One
Yes.
second. Let's just get to it.
Section, the revised comprehensive motor vehicle policy is referred to.
You're on what, 2.7?
2.8.
2.8?
Section 5.4.
Right,
Point 4. So it stipulates that the government vehicle should not be retained overnight or beyond the period of specific assignment in special circumstances, such as where a vehicle is used to transport members of staff. And that is where it indicates that the accounting officer, head of entity, can grant special permission. But I want to emphasize that it says beyond the period of specific assignment. The representative from the Ministry of Finance is here, and I believe it would be useful to hear the Ministry of Finance's position on that, because what I am understanding here is that the clerk is saying that she did in fact give the FOM permission to utilize it for personal reasons. I don't know that a head of entity or an accounting officer can grant permission for a fleet vehicle to be used for personal reasons, but you can grant permission for the vehicle to be retained at the end of a special assignment. So if he's transporting members late in night, or he's asked to do an assignment which takes him beyond working hours, then I do believe that permission can be granted to retain that vehicle overnight. So I really want clarification if that's what the clerk said. And as I said, that this is really being introduced to me at this point.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Okay, so Madam Auditor General, just to repeat what I stated earlier, that no permission was granted for private use. I would have given some background information as to why the officer was allowed to use the vehicle based on extenuating circumstances. He would be at work beyond 9 p.m. and this can be validated. And in light of the fact, and there was a particular time as well, we are existing in a very antiquated building and we were having a lot of challenges. And therefore, at a particular time, he was here up until perhaps 10, 11, very late in the night. And in those circumstances, permission was granted. And this information is not new. It was clearly outlined to the auditors when they were conducting their research here. So it is not new information, and the facilities manager, I know, has stated this.
All right, Member Clark, well, Seabright was first, then Member Clark. What about the Member Seabright?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the Auditor General, the management response, it indicated that once the deficiencies in the fleet logbooks and supervision were identified, the Houses of Parliament instituted, I believe, weekly supervisory spot checks, and they strengthened the approval processes and introduced a rule that no fuel or maintenance is authorized without a clearly defined and pre-approved purpose of travel. So from your professional perspective, would you agree that if this is consistently applied, that these measures would directly address the control weaknesses that have been identified in the audit? Now, beyond that, question two, really now, when I went through the reports, the response outlines that the clerk issued multiple written directives, December 12, 2025, January 14, 2026, January 17, 2026, January 19, 2026, requesting explanations and documentation from the facilities and operations manager. Yet these were, repeated refusals to respond. So how does a committee then, how do we distinguish between what could be some institutional control weaknesses, but really individual non-cooperation? And how does an accounting officer handle a situation like that where somebody is blatantly not following internal accountability processes and the audit itself?
Thanks, Member. My quick response to question number two, I think that that question is best suited for the clerk. I guess she ought to explain to the committee how she will handle this matter. In relation to the logbooks, I believe that if there is consistent and faithful maintenance of the logbook alongside addressing the deficiencies identified, well, certainly it is hoped that there would be improvement in that area in the future. And regular supervision as well. Thanks for that.
Madam Clerk? Well,
so just to state, Mr. Chair, that our response to the Auditor General's finding has been twofold, where firstly, there was immediate termination of the unauthorized access to prevent any further personal use of the government-owned fleet vehicle. And secondly, we have now institutionalized a new structure where we have a new transport manager in place. We have moved from a person-dependent system to a procedure-driven framework. In fact, we are now at the stage, it was raised in the audit report about the non-operational vehicles that are here, and we are almost at the end of the procurement process in getting a haulage contractor to come and remove those vehicles for boarding. And we have a strict zero tolerance policy on uncertified driving, Currently, I can confirm to the committee that we have no officer here at the Houses of Parliament who is operating any fleet vehicle without valid certification. The new transport manager has also implemented and has been maintaining a mandatory register of ITA certifications, and this also extends itself to the office of to the opposition leader's office as well. And the new transport manager has been conducting weekly spot checks and monitoring the logbooks. So no resources are being released unless trips are pre-approved as official business with a clearly defined purpose.
All right, members, Clark, then Cousins. Press your thing now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, all. Earlier, the Auditor General would have asked for the permission to be granted for the person from the Finance
Ministry of Finance, Ms. Blake.
To answer a question. But before she does, Mr. Chairman, the same section, page 18, 2.8, I think the answer lies right there. It's section 5.4.4 of the RCMVP stipulates that government vehicles should not be retained overnight, fine, or be on a period of specific assignment, correct, except in special circumstances, such as where a vehicle is used to transport members of staff to and from work or for any other justified extenuating circumstances. The policy authorized the accounting officer to grant permission for the extenuating circumstances. However, she must satisfy himself of the continued safe custody of the vehicle during these specific assignments. I think the answer lies right there. It is.
I think the issue, if you read the next sentence, is that there was no evidence. So I think that's the issue.
The Auditor General is saying that when she was doing the audit,
she didn't see any
nothing
evidence
was provided. But the answer earlier from Madam Clark, and she would have explained the situation point by point.
Yeah.
So at this point, I still don't see the need to ask for, and yes, we still can get the clarity from Finance Ministry. But the answer sits right there. It rests with the authorized person to satisfy themselves that this is a special occasion, which we would have heard that the person in question, the officer in question, works beyond sociable time, which I believe is anywhere beyond 9 o'clock going up, considering the situation that was presented to us.
You want piece of two before cross your back.
His life.
I mean, you can't come drive up my vehicle so like I feel batty boy.
A robbery taking place.
You want broad board cross your back. Boy, I thought you know see anything of your girl vehicle. Everything you look over them vehicle. I mean, but you don't see sense. Because the answer is right there. Answer is right where?
Why she never
Where's the answer? We're not going to talk about get robbed. Uno should I really get robbed for true? Uno should I really, I shouldn't lie when I tell you now. Uno should I really get robbed for true? We're not going to make up dopey story. Like on the things say Halloween. But the answer is right there. Answer is right where? You think you can come just use up my vehicle like that? After me have to send your girl to school, send your picnic to school, as you hungry at me have to buy gas put in a for your personal vehicle. And the one that me buy now to do for my personal business. You want to drive up as I have a like. Can't work so papa.
You know what, yeah, this is
a
government,
so, papa.
This is a government business. You have to have everything written down. That means I saw them do the money, thief the money.
Just like I see them operate with this business. I see them so and Jonas are deal with the relief fund.
Yeah, see
just a do it feel like do because of him and the Prime Minister and nobody can ask him no question. But a lie him a tell. A lie him a tell.
You have to have evidence.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, my question and my point is somewhat piggybacks on the point made by Member Clark, in the sense that we are here, Chairman, to get some clarity on what is acceptable and what is unacceptable as far as the government guidelines are concerned. The clerk could have indicated earlier, one, that she allowed access for the unauthorized, for the youth to go to university and come back, and also to keep overnight. 2 admissions were made earlier. The Ministry of Finance is here, and so we need some clarity, because this doesn't only affect the House of Parliament. It affects other agencies of government in terms of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. We have a scenario before us, whether or not that is acceptable in terms of the extenuating circumstances. I have not heard of any evidence from the officer who says that he was robbed, that he made a police report, and that report is somewhere attached to something given to the Auditor General to verify the extenuating circumstances. So,
Hold on, he did. Did he?
Yes, and that can be provided at a later
it's not
date.
provided in
No,
this
it's not
response.
provided in the exhibits here, but it can be provided.
no, but you see, the point is that if you have it, provide it so that you can verify what you're saying is true. And that would not have allowed me now to ask the question, because I perused the documents, I did not see it. And to an untrained eye, you will miss it. But to a trained eye, we don't miss things like that. So, thank you for that clarification. No, she says that she will provide it. But, Chairman, I believe the Ministry of Finance
Okay, I'll ask
ought to
Mrs.
provide
Hoblake.
some clarity based on the circumstances.
Hold on, we have a whole heap of mics on.
Before the ministry responds, because I too just want to add something to that. The memorandum of August 15th from the Facilities and Office
Members, please. Member Cousins, please.
Speaks to the whole issue of driver certification. And I just want to understand why, the Island Traffic Authority, aren't they the body that issues driver's license generally? Why do they not accept their own driver's license certification? Why is there a special certification needed to drive a government vehicle when you already have a driver's license?
I don't know who here could answer that question.
No, but it just seems like unnecessary bureaucracy to me. Why would you need? It's the same Island Traffic Authority that would have issued every driver's license, whether private, commercial, general, whatever the categories are. So why would you need a special certification from the same authority that issued the first one? Is it they don't trust their own certification? Because this is not a specialized vehicle. We're not talking some heavy articulated tractor head or something like that. We're just talking a regular, Prado. So that's one. And then there is this issue about the distinction between the yellow-plated vehicles, and I'm reading from this memo, and the privately insured. So I'm going to assume that the yellow-plated vehicles are uninsured or self-insured by the government, and that the privately insured vehicles are the ones with the regular white plates. And again, I just want to understand if there is some distinction between those who are certified to drive the same vehicle, for example, a Prado that might have yellow plate in one instance, but white plate in another instance, but is the identical vehicle.
All right, I don't know who can answer those questions, but I I want to invite Mrs. Blake from the Ministry of Finance. Member Gordon, just release your mic and then turn it back on after. No, he was after him. I'll come to you. I'll come to you after, Member Cuthbert.
All right. Member Clark read from the policy, but I'll just read another section that talks about the unproductive use of fleet vehicles. Section 5.4.2 of the Comprehensive Government Motor Vehicle Policy says, drivers and other authorized employees who operate fleet vehicles must note that the government motor vehicles should only be used for official duties. Therefore, on no occasion should these vehicles be used privately. So that generally governs the use of fleet vehicles. He read further down by 5.4.4, which talks about the extenuating circumstances that gives the accounting officer the right to give permission to an officer to use the vehicles. But of course, you would have seen up here that it spoke about not using it for private use. And the example given here is if persons work late and you have the driver, then you wouldn't require the driver to carry back the vehicle to the premises of the entity, right? So the driver would be allowed permission to take home that vehicle once the accounting officer satisfies him or herself that the vehicle will be safe. So that's generally it. So there is the possibility that the accounting officer can give permission. In this case, he said he was robbed, etc. But of course, there needs to be evidence of that. And therefore, it would need to be in writing, because you would also need to know how long is this permission being granted. So those are the considerations. In terms of Mr. Member Bunting's question about the yellow plate and the white plate, assigned vehicles. So if most of the assigned vehicles are privately insured, are insured, not self-insured. Fleet vehicles generally are self-insured by the government.
And those are yellow plates?
Yellow plates.
Okay. Okay. All right. Member Gordon, then Member Cuthbert. Oh, she answered it? Okay. Member Gordon.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm grappling with the fine line of demarcation between what is approved by the accounting officer and the policy as it relates to who can drive a government vehicle. It would also seems to me that there's a void where there's one driver short at the Parliament. So over time, that driver was asked to carry out those functions. Would the Auditor General tell me whether or not that constitutes a breach, or is it that the clerk failed to have adequate staff on board so as to avoid the approval of the use of that vehicle?
Thanks for that question. Mr. Chairman, if you'd allow me the privilege of deferring to the representative from the Ministry of Finance who developed the policy, and I think is in a best position to indicate the intent of the policy.
Okay. Mrs. Blake?
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, section 5.4 again. Earlier, it talks about the transport manager will be the officer authorized by the accounting officer to assign and manage the motor vehicles. The intention is that government vehicles, government-owned vehicles, are driven by, we call designated drivers, government drivers. So that's the general rule, right? If you have a government-owned vehicle, not the assigned vehicles now, but once you have a fleet vehicle, there is a driver and there is a post, there are posts designated for drivers to operate those fleet vehicles. So generally,
Hold on, something wrong with the mic there. You want to turn off that one and use the other one? Turn it on off, use the other one.
all right, sir. Right. In addition, the policy says the transport manager has that only authorized personnel are allowed the use of a fleet vehicle. All right, so there might be instances where there is given permission for another officer to drive the fleet vehicle. However, that person has to be certified, etc., to drive the vehicle. And we do not expect that that would be on a protracted period of time either, because you have positions that were created for drivers, and it is expected that they operate the vehicles.
All right, Mrs. Blake, I want to come back to one. Oh, you want to ask your question now? Okay, you had asked to do.
Ask another question, if I'm
Okay,
allowed.
all right. Before you do, just following up on what Member Bunting had asked about the difference between the ITA certification versus the driver's license. Is that a requirement developed by the Ministry of Finance for certain vehicles that the person must be ITA in addition to having their driver's license?
The motor vehicle policy does indicate that the driver has to be certified. However, this is in keeping with the ITA, the act that they use. So it's just a reflection of what the ITA requires, that the drivers are certified. I think this came out of a concern that there were multiple accidents, and the ITA had, at the time, felt that part of the issue was that the drivers needed to be recertified.
And this goes across the board for all government vehicles?
Across the board.
Okay. All right, Member Corporation.
I hope we can wrap this part up soon, but you know, from what the member just stated, I think it's a non-issue what was mentioned if the clerk failed or not to employ someone to transport persons around. Ms. Hope Blake just mentioned that the FAA Act, according to the FAA Act, once authorization is granted for the vehicle to be, for someone to keep it overnight in extenuating circumstances, that I'm hearing that it's okay once it's written, correct? So I don't think, I think it's a non-issue for you to mention if the clerk failed or not. I just wanted to point that out.
Let me just say before I remember, God, the only reason this was flagged as an issue, at the time of the audit, the Auditor General didn't see written permission, which is why she raised this as an issue. The clerk has said that she provided it to the auditors in the interviews, but at the time she didn't see it. All right. Member Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think my question was misinterpreted by a member from West Rural St. Andrew. At no stage did I refer to the clerk as being derelict in her duty. I asked the question whether or not the shortage of a driver would place that person who was authorized to use the vehicle in a precarious position, because he was acting in a capacity not available to the Parliament at that time. And hence, I am asking the question whether or not it would satisfy the Auditor General that the accountable officer made that authorization.
All right, I'm going to move to the issue of the government-funded credit card. And the issue that was flagged here is that there was an error in terms of the transfer of funds, and it was undetected for 4 months. I've noted your response since, and the issue of a new principal financial officer. But prior to that, could you indicate how regularly were the accounts being reconciled, and whether the individual before was doing that on a consistent basis? It appears not, but I just want to find out from you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Based on instructions received, It is our understanding that the reports were not being maintained in a consistent manner, and proper oversight perhaps was not adopted in the circumstances, which would have led to this processing error from the bank.
And let me just ask, I note you have said since the new PFO has come in, does the principal financial officer report directly to you, and does he give you a status report with a monthly or so to say all the accounts have been reconciled and provide the evidence, give you evidence that statutory deductions are paid, etc.? Is that provided now?
That is correct. He does provide a monthly report, and I can tell you that prior to even my tenure here at the Houses of Parliament, we had an issue where a lot of staff were being either overpaid or underpaid, and since the new PFO has joined the institution, we have seen several changes, and certainly reporting mechanisms are strong, and we do not have any outstanding quarterly credit card reports at the moment, and this can be attributed to the oversight that is being provided by the PFO.
Member Bunton?
On this issue, I mean, $29 million is not a little bit. Is it that the Parliament is so flush with money that they don't catch a 29 million error in transferring? There must have been, was there not a shortage somewhere else that would have indicated that this substantial sum is missing from where it should have been? I mean, and then for it to go undetected for 4 months, I mean, to say indicates weak reconciliations, that must indicate no reconciliation was taking place. How would a $29 million transfer error to a card account not be detected in the normal, I would imagine?
Hey, Peter Bunting, you come like you read my mind. I like how you conquer in our friend with that one there, you know. So, as some money are running a Jamaica Parliament, so you just spin and no care.
No care.
Macadam, you need to go look at Jamaica Parliament. Because you love money.
At least monthly bank reconciliations that should take place.
Thank you, Member Bunting. So just to state for the record that the erroneous transaction occurred on January 31, 2025 during the tenure of a former PFO who was on secondment to the Houses of Parliament and had the functional responsibility for oversight of the recurrent account. Now, also to state for the record, the credit card in question, it has a limit of $5,000 only. So the error would have occurred between the financial institution, because if we only have a limit of $5,000, on what basis?
I think the Juliet Wellness is behind this.
A shame, man.
Because that's what Andrew Wellness stay, you know. Andrew Wellness thief and blame somebody else, you know. So now Juliet Wellness has set up she if I blame somebody else.
Yeah.
Juliet has set up this drag queen if I blame somebody else.
Let me go check when she start work.
Look on her face, thief like a puss. Look on the mudfish side of him. And look on the bullfrog run so. Look on the one in the corner. Feel like the roasting fish. You know, they look a black roasting fish run one them turbot. The one have one look a red glass. I side this up. Look on hunchback. Look on Humpty Dumpty. And drag queen. Have on spectacles like things nice. More of no thief in blood clot and go. A Juliet owners are true to you. A Juliet owners are telling what you saying of this. Because it sound like Andrew owners.
Yeah, because she come out and she said the person wasn't consistent. The accountant never consistent.
She not no sense.
And then Julia no question her.
You know, she not no sense.
Yeah.
It come like Andrew send out Favor Williams.
Exactly.
To come represent him. And now Juliet want to send out she now to represent she. Eh? Hey, if Jamaican people not get out them people that have parliament, I'm not gonna walk with one hand in front of you and one back on. Not even close to not gonna left with on the back.
Brother.
Would you seek to withdraw or to make a claim for $28.96 million?
But I'd go further. On what basis would any officer of the parliament do that transfer?
It was not transferred. The transfer was done based on my understanding from the Accountant General's department. So it's not like the PFO. It is not my understanding that.
Oh, so it was
PFO
not initiated by someone at the parliament?
That's not my. 1 second. Okay, thank you. So I've just been properly advised by the PFO that we had submitted a letter to the bank for payment on the credit card, and then the bank actually made that processing error in withdrawing more than what was stated in the cover letter to them. And
So you sent to the bank the amount that you felt should have been withdrawn, and the bank withdrew significantly more?
That is correct. We're just trying to find that. Okay,
Yeah, if you
so
could
it's at
direct us to that memo, please.
So it's at exhibit HOP 9.
HOP 9. Hold on. This is the January 28, 2025 letter to the manager of Scotiabank?
Yes, that's correct.
So your instructions were for the Jamaican equivalent of 181,000 Jamaican dollars. Hold on, let me just make sure I'm reading this right. With the Jamaican equivalent of, be credited to the US account. And they took out, so instead of 181,000 Jamaican, 28. Sorry, I'm just trying to understand. I'm a little confused here. Okay, you are saying 181,000 Jamaican, but what was done was 29 million?
They converted it to US dollars, it appears.
So they
converted
took the Jamaican equivalent, assumed it was US.
It appears to be, that is what transpired.
Hold on. Let me read this. The Houses of Parliament is hereby requesting that the recurrent expenditure account be debited with the Jamaican equivalent. All right. Well, let's see why they're confused. Because you said with the Jamaican equivalent, so they would assume the 181 is US. I think this should have been written with more clear. It should have been clearer. And okay, I understand why the error was made. But it still don't explain why it takes so long to pick up the error, because that's a lot of money that you would have missed, that would have been taken out of your account. And but you are saying the Accountant General did that transaction?
No, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I stand corrected.
Hold on, Member Brown has been holding. Go ahead, Member Brown.
Thank you, Chairman.
Pull the mic a little closer to you. So.
Thank you. I wanted to piggyback on your earlier comment, and also I think Member Bunting, in terms of the undetection of this for 4 months. Specifically, I want to find out what is the management framework that you have in place, Clerk, to receive, and I see that seeping in through quite a few of the different findings of the Auditor General in terms of her report. What is the management mechanism you have? Because I see where after the issues have been highlighted, yes, the corrective actions have been instituted, but consistent throughout many of the findings is some indication that there is a gap in terms of management mechanisms, oversight. So I want to understand the structure of the Parliament in terms of, is there a monthly management meeting where all the functions are brought together to report into you so that these things are not undetected? And as I said, it is right across the board. The appropriations account, the breaches under the fleet management, those are being detected by the auditor. But what is the mechanism that you have in place at the Parliament to ensure that, well, walk me through that, because I'm pretty concerned about that, because there seems to be that gap in terms of a monthly review, feeding in from the different functions, fleet, finance, whatever the function, so that those issues are detected early and continuously. So could you guide me and walk us through those?
Okay, thank you, Member. So just to reiterate, all persons who report directly to my office must submit their monthly reports. But one can also appreciate that where an individual fails to incorporate certain information in their report, it would be somewhat difficult for where I sit to note that there has been a gap. We had a PFO at the time. Part of her responsibility was to ensure that the accounts were being reconciled, and clearly there was a failure. However, during transition, we got a new PFO who started the 1st of April, and by the 5th or 6th of May, thereabout, he detected this error. So it is clear that it's not a case where systems are not in place, but also a case where persons may not be applying themselves to the systems that exist.
Thank you for that response, Madam Clerk. So you get the report, all functions submit the report to you, but there's no active monthly meeting of the management and the leadership core of the Parliament where there's a discussion of these reports, so that if, for example, because you may be bombarded with 5, 6 different functional reports per month, because the fact is they are going undetected. The issues are going undetected, whether it be previous PFO or it being detected by the new PFO. It went 4 months undetected, and you would have received the 4 months of report from the, as you have outlined, from the outgoing PFO. So is there, and it's just trying to understand what is the management oversight that happens, so that, and perhaps implementing such a structure where, apart from getting the reports and you being encumbered with going through that, there is a monthly leadership meeting of the Parliament where those reports are discussed, so that the gaps and the undetection do not occur.
Okay, so we currently do not have any set monthly meetings for management, but as I have said before, even with the written report, there's an obligation for persons to pay due diligence and to give an accurate reflection of what transpired. I usually go over. Sometimes it's not possible to have these regular meetings because we have sittings twice per week in most instances, and there are other administrative and competing issues at hand. So it's somewhat difficult to have a prescribed monthly meeting, but there is a monthly reporting structure, and I do take the time out to review those monthly reports, and if there are questions or red flags, I will reach out to that officer to request further clarification.
Just in future, you have to keep on your mic because it goes in the order. So I'll ask Member Bunting and Member Currencia if you could release yours, and then after Member Brown, you will come back on.
Thank you. And I appreciate the explanation. I'll just finally say that you are going to be in the hotspot always. So therefore, you indicate that the obligation is on the functional head, be it accounts, be it fleet, be it whatever department. I would suggest that because you are in the hotspot, that you could look at reviewing the management structure and how you undertake the oversight so that we don't have these things and that you are not brought to bear to explain inefficiencies and errors from your management team. Just a proposal. Yes.
All right, Member Bunting, then Member Currencia.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, looking at this letter, the bank made no error. The error was made in how the instruction was written, because having spent many years working in a bank, this is clear. Requesting the recurrent expenditure account be debited with the Jamaican equivalent of $181,026.73 and credited to the US dollar account.
Yeah.
So clearly, if it's a Jamaican equivalent to credit and of an amount to be credited to a US account, it is perfectly acceptable that the bank would have interpreted it that way.
Yeah.
So the error was in the instruction, and the instruction was signed by Colleen Lowe, clerk to the houses. So maybe a mistake was also made in the wording by the principal finance officer, but we must take responsibility for our own errors. And clearly you were the co-signer on this instruction, Ms. Lowe. I really don't think it's fair to the bank to be trying to say the bank made an error. An error was made in the instruction that was given to the bank, and then this was further compounded by reconciliations not being done on a regular basis. It really shouldn't go more than a month, but it should perhaps be even more frequent given the size sums that are being transferred. So, please, let's just, anybody can make a mistake, but let's take responsibility for our mistakes and then put measures in place so that they don't recur.
In response to that, Member Bunting, let me also state that notwithstanding the specific reimbursement amount, the bank also failed.
Yeah, just one thief. You forgot prison.
Jesus, she lied.
The girl a liar. Big up everybody in that chat, and that girl a one liar. Andrew and Juliet want to train her well. It's so long then delay. Then put her down in one room and teach her how to lie. Now she could have graduate with doctorate in a lying.
And get honors.
And get honors. You know, sister, the girl a liar, man.
She just lied a while
ago. You know, sister, the girl a liar.
I blame the bank.
The girl a tell lie on the bank.
Oh my God.
The girl a tell lie on the bank. The girl lies until the girl a tell lie on bank.
Oh my God.
No, man. Andrew and Juliet Wellness trainer. That girl come out of Juliet Wellness school.
Jamaican people sit down and allow them.
Jesus mercy God. Where do my people come from?
She lies, so she tell bank say 180.
To make contact with a representative from the Houses of Parliament to confirm the sum that was to be credited. And this is a standard practice from the bank. And there are emails we're trying to find where the bank would have stated that they did try to reach out to the then PFO to confirm the amount that should have been transferred, but they were unable to make contact with her.
So in every, let me just, I know what happens at a personal level. If you request a transfer, the bank has to call you to verify. So you're saying is it Every transaction or above particular limits that the PFO...
Every transaction, even if we are requesting per diem from the bank, they usually call and confirm the amount and who is to collect it. Every
Okay.
transaction.
Every transaction.
Every transaction.
Okay. Okay. Is that, I must ask though, is that efficient for every transaction, or you don't set limits over a particular amount? I mean, an account in the PFO may be able to approve X, but certainly over an amount it might be the clerk who has to be, but you're saying every single, if it's 10 Jamaican dollars, they have to call to confirm.
That is correct.
Okay.
Every transaction, I usually receive a phone call or the PFO to confirm the amount.
Okay. All right. Yes, member. Mayor.
Point that is being made, sir, is that this was an unusual transaction because, as I understand it, the limit on the credit card is $5,000. And in circumstances where the letter as written is ambiguous, it's really a function of interpretation. Albeit the bank, it's really a function of interpretation because the writer intended one thing, the receiver interpreted one thing and followed with a series of actions thereafter. The fact of the matter, and in support of what the clerk is indicating, this was an unusual transaction. So it would not be far-fetched for the bank to make contact in circumstances where you're moving in excess of 100,000 United States dollars to a credit card that has a limit of $5,000.
35 times.
All right. I want to move to the procurement of the services for the renovation of the members' lounge. No, I think we all are happy as members of that the lounge is much better. It's just ensuring that the procedures were followed. I know there were issues related to the air conditioning unit and the procurement and the lack of formality, no formal contract, purchase order, etc. Could you explain that? I know you were indicated you were trying to move quickly in terms of getting the units in, Madam Clerk. Well, could you explain that?
Sorry, so the question is in relation to the procurement of the AC unit?
Yes, and it says here, no formal contract, purchase order, warranty, no commitment control, officer attestation, no inventory records, supplier document lacks serial numbers, no physical verification.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, we accept the findings from the Auditor General regarding the fact that the AC units were not supported through the proper procurement process, and that we have implemented new measures to ensure that in the future we do not have a recurrence where any officer from the Houses of Parliament can walk into an entity and request to purchase units without proper procurement processes. And I must also state that, for the record, what
This is Gillette Wellness script. You can't blood clot thief for money. And I say in the future you're not going to thief you again. You're going to put things in place so we can track what go on. I fuck your chat. You can't thief for money on Gillette Wellness. Then I can tell you the next time you're going to do better. That's basically that you're saying for a night, you know.
Because guess what them do now? Them put up something internal.
Eh?
Internal, come up with some internal committee.
Well, no make no sense.
It should
Eh?
be independent. It shouldn't be an internal.
Internal community with be a thief.
I see him thing Christopher Tufton do. With
Internal
the
community with be a thief. Like I don't think we are eat that.
People are trying.
The people them for just get serious and start beat every politician.
Jesus mercy.
I just say reach now. You see what going on in America? Eh? Can I believe that these politicians, you see, can go around and rape little pitney, take a little pitney, kidnap little pitney, take a little pitney to human trafficking, and just because them are big guys, nothing now come out of it.
It is wrong.
The system where them put in place, fear do things that protect them, and people still are play along with this matrix. Unless when I get scammed, the whole world is in problem. Now the same thing all about us here, go on. Look what happened in America. Look on the Epstein file. Look on the things that will come out of there. And instead of the law of the land, fear take charge, I take side with wrongdoers. All over. And people come like them cool with this time. I'm not cool with this now. I don't cool with this not at all. Because this don't feel right in my spirit. This don't feel right in my spirit.
I can ask a question. Does Jamaican people understand, say, I feed them money when them pay tax?
They don't understand.
They understand, say, I feed them money, or they don't understand? Because I don't think them...
They don't understand. It's the truth. Enough of them are thief. And through them just thief and go buy them chicken money, then you take the tax to them and pay when them buy. Because through them are thief. They now up their money, so they just thief and go spend. So they're not business about the local tax, so I take out the thieving money. They don't care.
All of these taxes add up. This is why we can pay them.
Look how much money. I never talk about Jamaica now, no money. And politicians make so much money and then can't find so much with thief. Look how much they can't find with thief. When I hear say them are thief, look how much millions you hear say them are thief. Eh? And look on the road them in Jamaica. No health care shit down in our community. Look on somebody's school them. Look how I live. Eh? Look how I live. I'm alright with that. I have these people are thief and I take long to come answer way. And then I come with dopey story.
Yeah.
Eh?
Dorothy say every time these people thief our money, all they hear is that things will be put in place.
They are going to put things in place. Things are going to be different. You can't thief your money and say, alright, sorry, next time I'm not going to thief you again. This is Juliet Warner's script. This sound like a Juliet Warner's put her up for do this. This sound like Juliet Warner's. It sound like a Juliet Warner's. But you can go on. Juliet Warner's are going to throw your blood clot under the bus. You go on. And Juliet look out for himself, you know. So you can stay there, yeah? You're going to get fucked without a condom.
Do know is that some of these purchases were made when I was away on official business, and we also have justifications from the facilities and office manager who would have gone to ATL to procure these AC units without following proper procedure. And I'm just trying to locate where in the exhibit you can find his justification, where he stated that at the time of acquisition, it's by way of a memo dated July 30, 2025.
You better make sure so you're not on Epstein file. We're not gone for business. You better make sure you're not come up on Epstein file. We're gone for business with taxpayer money.
We're just trying to find it in the exhibit. He stated that at the time of acquisition, the applicable single source procurement threshold, HOP 19, in your appendix. 1919. At the back.
While I look for that, you mentioned that it some of this took place while you were on official duty. Again, the question I would ask, which Member Brown raised, is a process question. What is the process, whether you are physically here or not, if someone is going through the procurement process for this? Is there a threshold, for example, that you must approve as the accounting officer, or is there a lower threshold that the procurement officer on his or her own can go ahead and approve? What is the process?
The process is that all expenditure must be approved by my office. And what would have transpired in this particular case is that the facilities manager would have gone to ATL and he would have solicited to acquire these units because he would be known to the persons and therefore they would, because we have a relationship with them, and on that basis I presume that
But he
the
would have been
units-
acting based on some discussion that, listen, we need to get these AC units because...
Some, because admittedly, my AC was down, the deputy clerk's AC went down, and also my executive secretary. So there were cases that were known that he would have received approval for those, but he would have stated that. So he gave two reasons. One is that at the time of acquisition, the applicable single source procurement threshold for goods was 1.5 million Jamaican dollars, and all 5 transactions fell below this threshold and were therefore legally compliant. There's also another memo, which I'm speaking from memory, where he would have also stated that it was approaching the end of the financial year, and to avoid monies being returned to the Ministry of Finance, then this would have also, it's in the same memo, sorry, on page 3, that money would have been unspent. So in an effort,
So he was trying to spend the money so that you wouldn't have to return it, and there was a clear need for
Because
the
it has come to the end of the year. You and Juliet owners decide so now go TV. And that's what I'm saying now. Because that come to the end of the year, you and Juliet owners say now try for no can TV without a detect. Sorry to say, John Queen, a detect. That is why you're in the parliament today. And a matter of fact, Juliet Wallace should have come in at the parliament because whatever you read from, that is Juliet Wallace handwriting. Whatever you read from, it is Juliet Wallace handwriting. So Juliet Wallace sound. Remember, so Andrew Wallace sound because we know Juliet write them for Andrew too, you know. This is this right across the road. Cha.
And it was below the threshold.
correct.
Okay. Members, are there any questions on this or?
Just
Hold on. No, we're talking about the specific, the procurement of the ACs. But Member Miller, you want to go ahead?
Just a general question. Is there like a procurement committee in place for the Parliament?
There is. And there's an expectation for there to be full compliance. We have the Director of Procurement who is sitting to my left, and we also have the Senior Procurement Officer sitting directly behind her. So we do have processes in place, and we also have committees in place, and usually when matters go to that department, an evaluation is conducted, and the full cycle in the procurement process is generally observed.
So in this particular instance, did this purchase go through the procurement committee?
No.
So for clarity, only items above the threshold goes to the procurement committee?
No, the internal procedure was not complied with in the circumstances, and as part of the corrective measures, based on the job description of the facilities manager, he would normally report to the Director of Corporate Services, but that position is currently vacant, so he is currently reporting to the Office of the Marshal. which therefore means that there can be no recurrence of what would have transpired in acquiring the AC units because
You know that pussy have to come out of a parliament. The blood clot that girl have to come out of a parliament and a Bigfoot girl. Yeah, Juliet only see a blood clot drag queen have to come out of a blood clot parliament. And we serious to you know pussy. On our teeth, you know. Me say, me can't wait for the people them just wake up. Cause we don't deserve to get beaten, you know. I'm not stop saying it, you know. Politician a pedophile and rapist and murderer, you know. A politician a fuck off, you look up at them in Jamaica, you know. A politician a take away, look up at them and send them through the human trafficking ring, you know. A politician a do it, you know. They don't know come put on jacket and tie like when somebody don't forget beating, you know, pussy.
permission or approval must be granted by the immediate supervisor, who is the marshal to the houses, and then it also comes to my desk for final approval. So on the requisition forms, 3 signatures are required.
That's a corrective measure.
Well, that has always been in place. However, it
big up everybody now, fire see me see you know, skit where you deal with.
The individual.
Big up everybody out there. Delroy there, big up on yourself, you know. I like and share. A tile.
Just to clear my mind, one of those signatures would have been the clerk's signature, the final, which means meant that they would have circumvented quite a few steps. As a person where the who the buck stops with, you would have ignored those steps as well, correct?
As I indicated earlier, that whilst I had knowledge for the purchase of, I think, 3 units, because in 3 consecutive days, units went down, including my own office. And I'm aware of that. As to the other purchases, they were made, some of them, while I was on official business. I was not physically here in the jurisdiction, and therefore did not grant any approval, and neither did I see any evidence that the deputy clerk, who would have supervisor functions in my absence, made such approval either. It does not exist, and it was never brought to my attention.
The danger here, Madam Clerk, I believe this person would have been trying to solve a problem which existed and was moving quickly. But the absence of controls or adequate controls means that that person could abuse the system. That's the challenge, right? And so clearly he was buying ACs because ACs had broken down and there was a need. But when you raise the issue of your absence, it's a red flag for me, because your absence shouldn't be an issue, because somebody deputizes for you. There's a process that somebody should follow that should be signed off before somebody can commit funds on behalf of the Parliament. So the challenge is ensuring that the process is in place, that somebody doesn't go out on a frolic of his own. And I don't think he was here. He was trying to solve a problem.
But the processes are in place, Mr. Chairman.
But they weren't followed.
They weren't followed, but they are in place. And the Director of Procurement is here and can confirm same.
And these, you see, a lot of the breaches that are coming up, I think we're putting in, you're putting in place things to correct it. And I understand that, right? It's just in this case, you know, the person could have abused that privilege and done many other things with the resources available to him without the knowledge of the supervisors here. That's the concern. All right, I don't know the order. I'm going to press my thing. Is Member Bunting, then Gordon, then Cuthbert Flynn.
So, Chairman, I'm just trying to reconcile the memo of July 30th, 2025, HOP 19, and it's written by Mr. Watson, the Facilities and Office Manager. And in conclusion, he ends the procurement and installation of the 16 air conditioning units were in full compliance with the thresholds applicable at the time, consistent with the updated procurement policy effective March 27th, 2025, justified under Section 25 of the Public Procurement Act, carried out through 5 separate invoices, none exceeding the threshold, and this part I'm not 100% understanding, funded separately from the 30 million fixed asset allocations for financial year 2024-25. So I'm having, this person is still in a role? So they are of the view that they were fully compliant with the various procurement policies and regulations. The Auditor General, and seemingly confirmed by you, now say that there were multiple breaches. How do you reconcile this memo with the conclusion? I'm trying to understand. What of those 5 bullet points in his conclusion are incorrect?
Okay, so Member Bunting, if you should look at the same memo, on the transaction details, where the 5 invoices are listed, and if you look at the dates, so when you take all things into perspective, so for an example, invoice number 2 and invoice number 3 are both dated March 13, 2025. One number ends with 608, the other with 611. And if you also look at the sum, it's just below the $1 million threshold. And
so what you're saying is splintering the transaction.
It appears to be that based on the invoices that are stated
he's
here.
Splintering the transaction to get around the intent of the policy.
It appears to be so based on the evidence that is here.
But again, was he doing that because there was the urgency of trying to procure the things?
No, but I think it would be, Mr. Chairman, making a mockery of the policy if officers could just splinter purchases to get them below the thing. So
below the threshold.
You know, whatever may have seemed expedient, but I don't think that is. That certainly couldn't be acceptable, or it would open a gap that you could drive a horse and coaches through.
Correct.
It could be exploited, and there's some laws or regulations, for example, in poker, for example, where you talk about transactions below $1 million, it has anti-splintering provisions to avoid this very type of act. So I don't think, you know, especially now given that they're on the same day, it would be very hard to not conclude that this was contrived to breach the letter of the procurement policy, but it certainly breaches it in spirit.
Member Cofferton.
Oh, where was I? I got distracted. I think I'm looking at the Auditor General's report as to what was found. And I see what was found was procurement undertaken without budgetary allocation. Is that what happened? And also varying bid procedures and improper contract selection and award noted. So,
where are you reading
page
from?
6. Page 6. And this is
which document, just so that we're following?
This is in relations to the procurement breaches relation to the renovation of members' lounge and purchase of air conditioning equipment. So I'm not understanding, since I got, you know, was listening from what you stated, was there a budgetary allocation this procurement undertook without the proper budgetary allocation?
So part of the purchase would have been as a result of an immediate need and considered to be emergency. And regarding the facilities manager's assertion about not returning allocation to the Ministry of Finance, it is unclear as to what would have caused him to take this particular position about monies being returned under the budget.
Sorry, Member Gordon was before you, then Member Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is troubling to me is the fact that the clerk is saying that the officer acted on his or her own without any formal approval. Now, when you look at justification from Section 2 to Section 4, it is clear that Member Bunting was onto something about splintering. He raised the issue that the threshold was raised to 30 million. And so in his or her mind, they were acting under the threshold. So the purchases is way under...
The threshold was raised to 3 million.
To 3 million.
3, not 30.
Right, 3 million.
3, yeah.
And so they're acting below the threshold. Now, my question is, if the officer was on a frolic, who authorized or approved the payments? And what process was used to justify those payments since there's a glaring gap?
So approval for payments was post facto because the AC units were all delivered and most were installed at that time. And under law, if you have received the goods and they have been installed, you could find yourself being sued for specific performance. So there was an obligation for payment to be made in those circumstances.
So at what stage did you as the clerk intervene? Yes, there's an obligation to pay, but the breach or the gap was prior to that. And at what time did you intervene? At what stage did you approve payment, given the fact that you said you were on vacation or whatever special leave at the time? It was never brought to your attention. So who was the officer approving that? Are you then saying the procurement officer was acting on a frolic?
Sorry, it was not the procurement officer, it's the facilities
whichever officer.
office manager. And I will repeat that my involvement was limited to post facto approval for payment based on the fact that the goods were already delivered and some already installed at the time.
So would you accept that there was a procedural breach? And at what stage did you recognize that and move to fix it?
We accept the findings of the Auditor General, and the corrective measures are now in place to ensure that going forward, no officer can act on their own volition, to ensure that there is no recurrence of any breach under the FAA Act and relevant instructions and our circulars from the Ministry of Finance and Public Service. And additionally, training has also been provided to staff, in particular for procurement as well. So this has been a part of the corrective actions taken.
Member Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I must say I feel a little bad because the clerk saying that the officer is, on a frolic of his own, and the gentleman is seated right here. I am reiterating the point, Madam Clerk, that it would appear that we are not, in terms of the management structure of the Parliament, we are not talking to each other in terms of the functional issues. And again, the processes need to be put in place. Even if you're abroad, even if you're on vacation, it's important that a structure is in place so that there's proper accountability, proper reporting, persons, because again, the buck stops with you. So to say you aren't here, you're abroad, and I feel a little bad for the officer that is here to say that he's on a frolic, because the overarching management of the Parliament requires that somebody holds all the officers accountable, they report, so that they are not on a frolic of their own. So I appreciate that the corrective actions have been put in place, but again, in my earlier intervention, we need to have the systems in place routinely and consistently so nobody is on a frolic of their own.
And may I respond to that member to state that, again, systems are in place. And I really don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but when you enforce and when you hold people accountable, there's a narrative that you
Somebody get some carrot for me, please. Because she needs to go down this rabbit hole. We need to see what down in this rabbit hole I hide. So please, may I beg somebody, not stop at the half license and buy £1 kilo a carrot for me. Because we want to go in a rabbit hole. So you have to go talk, you know. You have to talk. So if you keep secret for Juliet Wellness, if Juliet Wellness down in the rabbit hole I hide, throw down some carrot down there. I hold one run right at the mouth next to come up. Because you need to go down in the rabbit hole. Una here, alright. Basically now, what this girl here say, everything what she say come out and I say a lie. She just a try to cover up for somebody because she don't want to go down in this rabbit hole. And that may I get from this, you know. Everything when she open her mouth and say, it is a lie from the pit of hell. Because she try to cover for somebody, she don't want to go down in the rabbit hole. We are going to send her down in there.
Are being vindictive when you hold officers accountable. There's a narrative that officers believe that they're being harassed when there are certain demands for compliance with the systems that exist. And when I stated for the record that I was not here, that was not to justify that I'm trying to absolve myself from my accounting responsibilities. It is to provide background information and to state that at no particular time any approval was given, neither did the officer sought approval from those who were present and could have given that approval. The systems were there, whether or not I am here, and they were not complied with.
Mr. Thomas from the Ministry of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. The Ministry of Finance is a little bit concerned in terms of there are systems that were implemented through circulars, and there was an electronic system, the government financial management system, that should at least assist in ensuring that at least a particular level, compliance is being made when payments are to be done. So I just want to understand that in terms of the requirement is that a commitment requisition is done prior to any form of payment is to be done. A program manager must be the responsible officer that will sign off that commitment requisition to give the go-ahead to even start to communicate with any external person or personnel. So I just want to understand, at what point was the deviation made? Is it that no commitment requisition was signed and no go-ahead was given to the officer to approach a supplier? And then, when payments are to be made, it's clearly outlined. The process flow clearly outlines that a commitment must be done in the actual application, which must be certified, authorized, and updated. That's even before payments start to be made to ensure that monies are available and we're not spending where we don't have any funds. After the commitment is done, then invoices should be coming in. When the invoice comes in, there is a need to certify that or to sign on that invoice that goods were satisfactorily received or services satisfactorily rendered. So I'm trying to understand at this point in time, what took place here, or what was the contract, or what was the bill, or what was the supporting document that was being used to measure what is being paid against what was being requested. I kind of want to hear what happened here, because the Ministry of Finance really want to assist in ensuring that the policies can be strengthened. So I want to understand, was it a total circumventing of not only the policy but actually the system as well? Or I just want to understand how it works so we can strengthen the policy. Because it did say when we are certifying a transaction, we just want to ensure that the system that is available to the entity right now, it can work. Because if it can't work, then the same thing will happen again. So the ministry wants to strengthen. So I just want to bring to the floor, Chair, that these procedures are in place. So I'm not understanding where the breach took place. I want to understand so we can guide. As a Ministry of Finance, we can provide proper guidance. So if that clarity could be made, the Ministry of Finance would be comforted to provide the guidance required.
What's the point of order? What's the point of order? What's the point of order, Member Clark?
I am raising a point of order, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman.
Yeah.
I thought I heard my colleague said something, so I was waiting. Anyway, the question I want to ask, the gentleman is from Ministry of Finance?
Yes, Mr. Thomas.
You're giving clarity, you're giving us some clarification, or you're asking some questions?
He was asking. He made a statement and he asked some questions.
Is he here in the capacity to question the officer, or is he here to give us
No,
guidelines?
but he can, if there's a particular issue, as the Ministry of Finance.
Mr. Chairman, I'm asking through you to the gentleman, is he here to ask questions or to give clarity and clarification to matters that may arise that may be confusing?
Only really I hear you right, Clark.
Of the committee. No, not you. Not you.
Only really I hear you right, Clark. Only see dog shit to these people be. Only see say one of them a dog shit. Only I hear you right, Clark. Somebody I got a prison, you know. But I'm sure say no me.
Not you, cousins. You're not the chairman.
Yeah, but I'm answering. He has the right here to ask a question, to seek clarity. He's representing the Ministry of Finance. He elucidated on his point, but I don't see anything that is out of the norm in terms of what he asks. No, he can ask a question. The Ministry of Finance is here. Their responsibility is to be the stewards of the finances of the country. If they see something or hear something which seems to deviate from process, he has the right to ask that. And he has done so, and I do think he should be answered. I don't see anything improper about what he has asked.
If I may, he also indicated that he wants to assist.
Yeah.
You understand, to ensure that there's not a repeat of what transpired. Yeah. So I don't see anything wrong with that.
I don't either. Okay. All right. All right. Madam AG, you wanted to say something on this particular point? Members, please, hold on, Heather. Press your mic, AG. All right, members, please. Madam AG, press, yes, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just want to...
Members.
I just want to provide information based on the clarification requested by the Ministry of Finance, and I'll refer you to page 41 of 4.27.
Cousins.
Yes, page 41 of 49.
Of your report,
Yes,
yeah, go
of
ahead.
the report. Paragraph 4.27. And I'm going to read from the second sentence. In relation to this specific matter, the absence of a signed contract by both parties may prevent HOP from enforcing any claims. So we're reiterating that there was no contract in place. And we went on to say that also the required purchase order was not submitted, and the required written attestation from the commitment control officer that the funds were provided and are available for the specific purpose of the proposed expenditure was not presented.
Understood. Members, are there?
Yes, in relation to the motor vehicle accident. Oh, you're moving to another point now.
No, you can ask your question.
Yeah, sure. In relation to the motor vehicle accident, what is the status of the settlement offer? One must read this something.
I know. Just help everybody and tell us where you're from.
What page? I don't look for the something, man. In relation to the motor vehicle accident, what is the status of the settlement offer? Because I see where it was indicated that by September 9th, there would be a recommendation and proposed steps. I've looked at the response from the House of Parliament, and that was omitted in the response. Also, the accident occurred in July 2024. There was no legislative council until September 2025. When was the settlement offer made, and wasn't there any acting legislative council between that time and September that would have allowed us to address this matter? Why would we have to wait until all the way in September of the next year for this matter to be addressed? I find that concerning.
The Auditor General wants to say something on this point.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman, because by way of correction, the clerk indicated that she did engage legal counsel, and had provided information that I believe would have been overlooked by us. Because having reviewed this package yesterday, we saw an email thread where she referred the matter to the legal counsel. And I gather that it's by that email that she's saying that she referred it. The challenge is that in responding, the specific correspondence was not referred to and was overlooked when reviewed. So we are satisfied that a referral was made as far back as September, I believe, 2024. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I'm being instructed by the legal counsel that we are waiting an update from Toyota Jamaica to receive the estimate before we can accept sale.
Member Cousins, you heard? You heard the answer?
I heard the answer, but I saw an estimate on the file from Toyota Jamaica already. Is it that you need an updated estimate?
one.
Okay. Thank you.
Members, are there any other questions for the Houses of Parliament? Okay.
One final question from me, Mr. Chair. The issue was raised of the non-submission of the appropriations accounts for about 5 to 6 years. I will not belabor the point in terms of understanding from the Parliament level why that was not done, because it's clear in terms of the processes, inadequacies of the processes. But my question would be to the Ministry of Finance in terms of oversight, because the appropriations accounts in a sense, ensures that the agencies and ministries are adhering to the fiscal spend and the budgetary allocations of the government. So where we are not getting that from any agency, and it's repeated, 5, 6 years, would not the Ministry of Finance, because there's not a board that oversees the Parliament's operations to detect that, would not the Ministry of Finance be observing that? And why wouldn't they have raised that as an issue before the auditors would have come to identify that as a finding?
Well, before I invite the Minister of Finance, let me say, Member Brown, it is a chronic issue, and coming out of the Auditor General's annual report, you'll see a number of ministries, departments, and agencies that are way behind. And in fact, that's the discussion we're going to go to next. But what I would ask the Houses of Parliament to do is to give us an update as to a timeline by which you intend to bring the accounts up to date so that we know we can hold you to that particular time frame. And then I'll invite Ms. Blake to comment.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, I was just informed by our Director of Procurement that their branch is awaiting the terms of reference from the Principal Finance Officer, because we have decided that we perhaps should get an external consultant to come in to prepare those back or outstanding reports, which is an inheritance from so we are in the procurement process to ensure that those reports are brought up to date.
All right, what I'm going to ask you, because I know you can't give me the answer to date, that by next week, in writing, you provide to the clerk a time frame for the procurement of the accounting services, and then what is the time frame? I don't know if it's 5 or 6 years that you have outstanding. You have to give us a date by which you believe you'll bring those accounts up to date. All right?
I understand the corrective measures with the procurement of an external team to deal with it. But is it that the Parliament does not have the capacity? So once this is fixed, will we then be able to, going forward, have the requisite capacity to
do it on our own?
Yeah.
Based on instructions received from the Principal Finance Officer, is that they are continuing to do the work to bring the reports up to date currently, and the consultant will focus on the legacy backlogs that we have inherited. Thank you.
All right, I wanted to allow either Ms. Blake or Member Seabright, if you could just release your mic so I can allow. Yes, go ahead.
With respect to the financial statements, especially the appropriations accounts, the Ministry of Finance does have serious concerns. What the Ministry of Finance does on a monthly basis, it sends out a rating sheet to all entities outlining whether or not they are outstanding, and if they are far outstanding, they would have been issued with a letter indicating that they are outstanding, and also for them to state to the ministry what are the challenges and what are the things that will be put in place to ensure that these statements are up to date. Each year, the Ministry of Finance outlines the concerns and stands ready to partner with the Accountant General's Department if it's a case where training is needed to get the officers up to speed or whatever it is to have the statements done. So it's not that the Ministry of Finance is not aware, it's just sometimes the entities are just not responsive.
Member Seabright, you had a comment? Or,
Yeah, just wanted to point out, Mr. Chairman, that I think we should commend the staff of Parliament for addressing some of the deficiencies highlighted in the Auditor General's report. Clearly, there is no case of systemic fraud or any deliberate wrongdoing by the institution. And clearly, some of these issues have gone on for many years. And I see definitely a clear and coordinated effort to address the issues systematically, and they deserve commendation for doing just that. Thank you.
Okay. Member Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. And what we would not want to see is a headline that says that the FOM was on a frolic of his own. We don't want to see that. Member Bunting used the word expedience, and I think that this is, we just want to, I certainly want to put it out there that this is a classic case of what happened in that instance, and also that this highlights that the thresholds that existed, they were really outdated, they were impossible to work with, but the Auditor General, I'm sure she will say notwithstanding that. So we are actually happy that there is indeed an increase in the threshold that allows us to reasonably, and especially in this time when we know that the costs are very different from the decades ago when those measures were in place. It was virtually impossible to do business. And finally, I want to say, Chair, that it should come out very clearly that the systems in Parliament, the systems of controls and accountability, that they are in place. And what needs to happen is that they need to be properly utilized and observed. Thank you, Madam AG.
Madam AG, you wanted to comment here?
Right, I think the member addressed it with respect to the increase in the threshold. I'm an accounting officer, so of course I would appreciate that increase as well, because I do sit on the other side, as well as being Auditor General. I just want to reinforce, and the member did speak to that a part of the issue was not just the threshold being breached, but the fact that the fiduciary responsibility was not evident. The fact is that the government, because it is the government that was committed, albeit it's $3.2 million, but there was no action to ensure that even funds were available. Well, there's no evidence that that was done before committing the government, and that is very important as a part of the stewardship responsibility for all heads of agencies. Thanks.
All right, thank you, members. So I'm going to close, and I'll release the staff and thank the staff from the Houses of Parliament. Members, we're just going to, so you can exit. Members, we're just going to have a quick discussion on the annual report, and if members have, I have some areas that I believe we need to probe further, but I would invite members if there are any specific areas that you believe. I will start. Well, the Ministry of Health will be coming here to deal with the university hospital, right? But there is still a significant backlog in terms of the outstanding appropriation accounts. The Ministry of Local Government that has responsibility for parish councils, there is a chronic issue there with the absence of appropriation accounts. We had the Ministry of Local Government last year, I believe. They gave some commitments in terms of timeframes to bring the accounts up to date, but based on the Auditor General's report, I don't believe we are making progress as quickly as we should. So I certainly believe the Ministry of Local Government should be invited back. The Ministry of Health will come. I also believe the Ministry of Agriculture should be invited. There was a specific issue raised, and in relation to fertilizers, I think they should be invited here on that particular issue. But I would invite members, if there are any coming out of the annual report, if there are specific MDAs that you believe need to be invited to elucidate on issues that arose. Yes, Member
Chairman,
Cousin.
the National Land Agency.
I've noted in the report.
Sometimes you cannot this time record because there's no accountability for Joe. Nobody now hold account for all of these things.
You know, sister, the girls
There's
not
no
gonna grab it twice.
accountability. This is a joke, you know, it didn't make no sense and go Parliament, but them are saying,
Exactly.
there's no accountability.
Nobody
Just
now get fired.
blame game, nobody now get fired. This is a joke, yeah, man. Oh, this is a joke, yeah, man. Oh, this is not a record. Politics, this government system now record. But this government system for crash. Yeah, man, this government system is a joke. This government system now work out for nobody. The government system work out for people. The government system only put in a bondage and enslave you. And one time them fuck up, no accountability. And just play a blame game and
Because that girl
just
sit down
just,
there
just
lying
like
and
that.
she not take no, she not say yes, I
This is
admit.
a joke, yeah, man.
And when they catch her
It's a joke.
and tell lie,
That there are some
Parliament
deficiencies
should
in the
call
accounting.
in that bank
So I
for a
think
question.
they should be invited to present themselves before us for some further.
Okay, NLA, okay. Member Bunton?
Separate from those identified in the Auditor General's report, there's a general lack of observation. If you go to the Cabinet Office website, it lists all it lists the last annual report that was presented to Cabinet for various agencies or government entities. And so, for example, I quoted last week in Parliament, NEPA. A key agency like NEPA has not reported to Parliament from 2015, 2016. Just, you know, how do we continue to accept this just lack of compliance with the law? Yeah, because I'm sure in the law that establishes the National Environmental and Planning Agency requires current reporting, but yet they're 10 years behind. There doesn't seem to be any sanction for it. You know, in fact, you struggle to find one entity in that long list published by the Cabinet Office that is current in its reporting obligations. As a matter of fact, it's just everyone is behind, but to what degree? You know, some are 3, some are 5, some are 10 or more years behind. And I just wonder, is there no penalty? Is there no enforcement? Is there no way we can bring those relevant accounting officers to book for their non-compliance with the law?
That's an important point. It's the same issue with you have raised the annual reports, the same issue with the appropriation accounts. The accounting officers have been here. They have highlighted some of the challenges, transactions that might have predated their own incumbency and the reluctance of current officers to sign off on things. There was an opinion sought from the Attorney General's department because there was a reluctance of officers to sign up on things 10 years in the arrears because they didn't want to be held accountable for stuff they didn't know. But it is a general problem that is across the board. There are some entities that are doing better than others, but you are correct that we shouldn't accept as the norm the level of delinquency that exists. And it's for ministries, departments, agencies, and it's I wonder, just following up on what you have said, Member Bunting, whether it would be the Cabinet Office or an appropriate body that should be invited here to have a discussion about that, because there are genuine challenges that exist for some of the entities, personnel, lack of appropriate personnel, other things. And I think it's important that this committee probes that particular issue, both for the annual reports and the absence of the appropriation accounts in many cases. And the appropriation accounts is pretty bad because you're just unable to provide an opinion on the state of the entity without those accounts. And in many cases, you know, in parish councils, they just don't have the records, which is even more concerning. So I would, as a committee, I think we should invite, whether it's the cabinet officer or the appropriate entity, to look at that. Is there any other business, members? No? We will confirm the date of the next meeting. I just want to bring your attention to the status report, which indicates the deadline that we have asked entities to provide their responses by. And once those have been received, we will schedule meetings shortly thereafter. Can I have a motion for the adjournment? Moved by Clark, seconded by Cuthbertman. Thank you very much, members.
Yeah. Here, St. Marga. Big up on yourself, you know. Just look out back from a little more from now.
Yes, I got Lord.
Yes, I got Lord. Now get my things them together, yeah? Big up on yourself. The word is love.
And subscribe, guys. Subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, man.
Everything is within time. Your truth live within you. And if you want to find God, you have to find God within you. And you possess of good or evil, so always remember, don't yield to the evil force. Yield to the good. You know why if you yield to the good? Good will always prevail over evil. You manifest the activity of the thinking in case you never know. So you create your physical experiences through the way you think and the way you feel. Through emotion or intuition or invocation. And always remember, anything at all where you send out there in the atmosphere, it's coming right back at you. So always have a positive thought, positive thinking. Think about the good. Anything where you ask for in life, you will get it. You don't go and like say just stay too long to get to the car. Everything is within time. Your time is your time. My time is my time. Your shine is your shine. Your shine could be my shine. My shine could be your shine. But we are all shining star.